Welcome, everyone, as we continue with Aquarius, continuing our contemplative integration of the three techniques with daring and pure intention. Thank you for being with us as we move through the last two signs of the year of the convocation.
Continuing into 2026, ideas, illusions, ideals, impressions, illusion, intuition, initiation. Integrating the three techniques: indifference, light, and the presence. The goal of this group service: to develop a compendium of teachings from the Tibetan master to assist us in developing a better understanding and integrating our learning from the various sources of knowledge and wisdom in relation to the constitution of man and the ageless wisdom teachings, and infuse our group relationships with the highest soul qualities through contemplation, meditation, and service, thinking the teachings into the minds of humanity. Welcoming your interpretations, insights, and inspirations. To dare. These words give the clue to the subordination of the personality and have a close connection with the great clearinghouse of desire and of the astral forces, and also the main center of the transmutive work. Humanity, to dare, to serve, and embody goodwill. May the holy ones, whose disciple I am, show me the light I seek. Give me the strong aid of their compassion and their wisdom. There is a peace which passeth understanding. It abides in the hearts of those who live in the eternal. There is a power which maketh all things new. It lives and moves in those who know the self as one. May that peace brood over us, that power uplift us, till we stand where the one initiator is invoked, till we see his star shine forth. As we progress into Aquarius, ponder on the qualities, themes we will contemplate together in our Zoom meeting. February 14th, 2026. Daring. Pure intention, the first rule of action. Formula 1. Creation in the light. Lead us from darkness to light. Technique of integration. Detachment. Lead thine own forth, but learn to know thine own. Hate, not attachment, but see its plan and purpose. Quality. Detachment. Service. The personality ray induces a separative attitude and causes a detachment from the group of souls of which the personality is an externalization and a constituent attachment to the form side of manifestation. The egoic soul ray induces group consciousness and detachment from external forms, causing attachment to the life side of manifestation and to the subjective whole. Concerning the testing going on inevitably among the aspirants and disciples at this time, this is not so much a testing of their place upon the path as of their power to live in the world as citizens of another kingdom, and as the custodians of that which the world as a rule does not recognize. Insofar as that testing is applied, and insofar as it can be gauged, I seek to point out that the testing is not applied, as some think, because of their affiliation with any group or because of their one-pointed determination to tread the path. It is applied because the aspirants' own souls so ordained it prior to incarnation, and it was the will of their souls that a certain measure of growth, hitherto unknown, should be attained, a certain degree of detachment from form should be achieved, and a certain preparation should be undergone which would lead to a liberation from the form life. The idea that a renewed effort towards the goal of spiritual light is the cause of trouble or precipitates disaster is not a statement of fact. The extent of the discipline to be undergone by a disciple is settled and known by his soul before he even takes a body. It is determined by law. What is it that we are endeavoring to do? We are treading the way of release, and on that way all drops from our hands. Everything is taken away, and detachment from the world of phenomenal life and of individuality is inevitably forced upon us. We are treading the way of loneliness, and must learn eventually that we are essentially neither ego nor non-ego. Complete detachment and discrimination must finally lead us to a condition of such complete aloneness that the horror of the great blackness will settle down upon us. But when that pall of blackness is lifted and the light again pours in, the disciple sees that all that was grasped and treasured, and then lost and removed, has been restored, but with this difference, that it no longer holds the life imprisoned by desire. We are treading the way that leads to the mountaintop of isolation, and will find it full of terror. Upon that mountaintop, we must fight the final battle with the dweller on the threshold, only to find that that too is an illusion.
To contact the vibratory resonance of the angel of the presence and bring the integrating light, love, and will to good into our and through our group field of endeavor. The light of the personal self focused in the mind. The light of the soul focused in the angel. And the universal light which presence emits. From the triangle of soul qualities that you affirm as the gift waves of your integrated personality, under the light of the soul, we rise on this beam to draw into our vessels the radiant, directed, and focused light, guiding us into the presence and identification as being. The formulas from the universal creative aspect. Our focus in Aquarius, Pisces, Aries. The transition from darkness to light. Creation in the light. Taurus, Gemini, Cancer. Formula 2. Transition from the unreal to the real. The nature of reality. Creation in time and space, as understood in the three worlds. Leo, Formula 3. Transition from death to immortality. The nature of life. The creative process and life energy. Scorpio, Formula 4. Transition from chaos to ordered beauty. Relation of the world of effects and the world of meaning. Then, relation to the world of causes, the nature of karma, progressive evolutionary creation. Formula 5. Transition from the individual consciousness to the universal. Evolutionary processes from divine purpose into plan and then into manifestation. The nature of individual renunciation, the one life. Formula 6. Transition from cyclic living into life itself. The purpose of cycles. Control of time-space consciousness. Will, if followed with spiritual exactitude, reveal your soul-intended life pattern, and this will be an expression of a life purpose.
This is a bit of an outline of what we may be able to achieve in the coming cycles in 2026. Knowing that each of us, in the period between the new moon and the time 2 weeks later when we will renew our meditative, contemplative integration of the three techniques in a meditation format, will hopefully bring forward impressions related to the themes that we can share and add to this compendium that we hope to develop during the coming year. This is a very ambitious goal, but I believe that in our pondering and our meditative processes, we'll be able to bring forward things to share that we've learned in other teaching, through our life experience, in a compressed form, so that we can build our connectivity and this channel of light, the Antakarana, to the new group of world servers, the Ajna center of our planetary being. Ben, will you continue, please?
These hints I will convey to you in the ancient symbolic formulas, which will require much deep reflection on your part, in an effort to evoke the intuition and thus arrive at the three meanings which they hold for you and for disciples like you. There are literally 7 meanings, but I would advise you to confine yourself to the comprehension of the first 3. There will be one meaning for your personality, indicating certain brain and mind realizations, which are essential for the right transmission of force upon the physical plane. One of the first things an initiate has to master. There will be the soul meaning, which will indicate relation to the hierarchy, in the same way that the personality significance will indicate relationship to humanity. Then there will be a still higher meaning, which will be exceedingly difficult for you to grasp, but for which you must strive, and which will necessitate the consciously acquired use of the Antakarana. You will understand, therefore, why the study of the science of the Antakarana forms part of my instruction to this group. No major initiation can be taken until there is some measure of conscious use of the Antakarana. On the side of soul expression, which is governed by detachment, the following phrases and sentences will give an idea of the progress and intent. The stage of spiritualization and of dematerialization. The soul functions with the purpose of liberation before it, and not of further physical plane experience. The relinquishment of form life. The period wherein satiety is experienced. The desires have been so dominant and so often satisfied that they no longer attract. The process in detail of liberation from bodies and forms. A body or bodies, a sheath or sheaths, a vehicle or vehicles, a form or forms. Emergence into light, a symbolic way of expressing the reverse of immersion in darkness. The path, of return, motivated by the wish to appropriate nothing for the separated self. The beginning of group consciousness and of group work. Selflessness, a major characteristic of the soul or self. Freedom from the desire to possess, freedom from acquisitiveness, and therefore the state of desirelessness. The establishing of the sense of reality as the ruling principle of the life. The return of the prodigal son to the Father's home. The application and use of energy for group purpose and in cooperation with the plan for the whole. The life of the soul, with all that is implied in that phrase. Love of God in contradistinction to love of self. Attachment to the unseen, the true, the subjective, and the real, which is only possible when there has been detachment from the seen, the false, the objective, and the unreal. Complete liberation from the control of the lower mind. The period wherein the center of interest is the kingdom of God and the soul. Reality, formlessness, God.
In the coming weeks, find an aspect of these qualities on the side of soul's expression that appeal to your soul expression as part of this entry into the Aquarian age.
Lead us from darkness to light refers to the mind as it becomes eventually illumined by the light of the intuition. This illumination is brought about by the means of the technique of the presence, from whom the light shines. This is the mediating factor, producing the transfiguration of the personality and a center of radiant light upon the mental plane. This statement is true whether one is speaking of an individual or of that focal point of light which is formed by the mental unity and the clear thinking of advanced humanity. These, through the power of their unified minds, will succeed in ridding the world of some aspect of the great illusion. Daring. Daring of the spirit is the beginning of ascent. The manifestation of true daring indicates to the spirit how to affirm the measuring scales of all actions, as well as the direction, because daring admits no faint-heartedness. Daring eradicates all tendencies toward betrayal. Whoever has realized in spirit true daring knows the beauty of service. The daring one knows the path of attainment and fears nothing. His, her life is filled with devotion to hierarchy. Each co-worker can reflect upon the beauty of fiery daring, for it frees the spirit from all worldly chains. The daring one is not afraid of solitude, for in spirit he, she feels a bond with the hierarchy of light. The daring one knows that the joy of the spirit is contained only in achievement. The daring one is in need of no human recognition, for his, her achievement is a crown self-woven by labor and striving. Only the heroes of spirit know true attainment. Thus, the daring one will be freed from selfhood. He, she knows true service for the good of mankind. On the path to the fiery world, let us remember daring. The first rule of action, purity of motive. With purity of motive, inspired by a loving heart, we offer ourselves for this work in the three streams of service of the soul: telepathic communication, influencing the innovators, guiding the organized efforts of the world to achieve right human relations; trained observation as the onlooker, devitalizing, dissipating, dispelling glamour, using indifference, light, and the highest point of the presence, bringing Buddhic love and light to the astral plane, where the majority of humanity is polarized. Magnetic healing of groups on the etheric field, driving out with magnetism of the third ray, which draws, attracts, manipulates, and arranges in according with divine purpose, the ancient evils, the lunar lords, and bringing into the etheric field the higher Devic builders. In uniting these streams in the building of the Antakarana to build the channel for the externalization of the hierarchy. I pledge myself to the path of love. I demand of the soul that I, the spirit in form, shall act as a channel of compassion and an instrument of love. Until I know myself to be love itself, I am that love. With pure intent, I serve. To this in knowledge full, I pledge myself. Aquarius, daring and pure intention. The first way of illusion, through wrong perception of an idea. The disciple cannot distinguish between an idea and an ideal, between an idea and a thought form, or between an intuitive and a mental concept. This is one of the ways of producing illusion, found most commonly among aspirants. The mental atmosphere in which we all dwell is one of illusion. It is also an atmosphere or area of conscious contact wherein thought forms of all kinds are to be found. Some of them are placed there by the hierarchy for man's finding. Some of them are men's thought forms, built around ideas. Some of them are very ancient ideals and have been discarded, but still persist as thought forms. Some of them are entirely new and therefore are not yet potent, but most attractive. All of them have been created by man at some stage or another of his individual and racial development. Many of them are the shells of long exploded concepts. Still others are embryonic. Some of them are static and stable. Many are in a process of descent from intuitional levels. A few are still illumined by the clear light of the soul and are ready for embodiment. A large number of other thought forms are in process of disintegration. Some of these forms are embodied ideas, are destructive in their nature, owing to the type of matter of which they are formed. Others are constructive. All of them are colored by some ray energy. A large number are necessarily built through the activity of the world of personality. Others are in process of construction through the agency of the soul, as well as through the joint activity of both these manifestations.
As we move forward together, let us, in our own contemplating, pondering of our life purpose and what is coming down through the technique of the presence, gather within ourselves a greater ability to distinguish within our own minds how we are processing the ideas, the ideals to which we are exposed, the ideas and the ideals that we are responsive to in our environment, and find the highest path to penetrate the illusions that we individually and in our groups need to penetrate in order to move forward with our purity of intention in this coming age. And embody the energies of Aquarius, water of life poured forth for thirsty men and women, as we bring into our awareness the great triangle of the saving force, Shambhala, hierarchy, and humanity, in the centralized presence of the Bodhisattva, the Christ, the Lord Maitreya, and Krishna. Let's pause for a moment and add, each of us, into the chat the soul qualities that can emerge through daring and pure intention. Those that came to mind in the preparation of these particular sharings from the Ageless Wisdom. certainly those in this group demonstrating spiritual courage, definitely demonstrating tolerance, demonstrating the patience and calm of the second ray, a kind of spiritual serenity that we bring to our in-person group work. The soul quality of life, that deep acknowledgement and appreciation of the individuality and life expressed in all the kingdoms, and the clear intellect of the third ray that is brought into a seventh ray expression, manifesting an orientation to the clear, embodied and imbued ideas that are present in our group work as they are articulated and become manifest through the seventh ray activities. See if in the next couple of weeks you can bring into your consciousness those soul qualities that are emerging in our groups through daring and purity of intention. Catherine.
You need ever to remember that at this time, the main technique of the hierarchy is that of conveying inspiration. The masters are not openly lecturing or teaching in the great cities of the world. They work entirely through their disciples and initiates. It will, however, be possible for them to appear increasingly among men and women and evoke recognition as the influence of Aquarius is more firmly established. The masters, in the meantime, must continue to work within the silence of the universal ashram, as it has been called, and from there they inspire their workers, and these latter, in their time and way, inspire the new group of world servers. You will note, therefore, that the effect of Aquarius upon the hierarchy, as far as you at your particular point in evolution can determine it, is to bring in the energy of Shambhala, which is essentially the energy of life itself, implemented by the will. This necessarily has created, and will increasingly create, major adjustments within the hierarchy itself. The principal type of energy hitherto used by the hierarchy is, as you well know, the energy of love. Now to that must be added the energy of the life-giving will. New methods, new approaches to the human problem, and new modes of work will have to be tried. Experiment with the incoming forces will necessarily be the order of the day, though they will be experiments based upon vast knowledge and implemented with wisdom and understanding. It is the reaction of modern man to the ancient forces which produces the need for care. Mankind, humanity, is oft unpredictable owing to the factor of free will. It is this which lies behind the training given to disciples, upon which I have already given you much instruction. The new techniques and the changed approach from that of individual culture to united group progress will bring about many types of development. It is this different approach to the same basic problems which lies behind the new capacities which are emerging among disciples. It is this which enables disciples of experience to work at high speed and with a life potency that is unusual. I would have all disciples begin to train themselves to respond to the Aquarian energy now pouring into the hierarchy. It is through the disciples that the new group of world servers are brought under the stepped-down Aquarian influences. This has to be an individual matter, largely dependent upon the point of evolution. Some members of the new group of world servers will not respond in any way. They cannot. Others will respond as fully as their spiritual status permits. This inflow of Aquarian energy is one of the factors which will enable the Christ to complete his task as world savior and world teacher. It will also enable him to take the initiation which lies immediately ahead of him and for which he has been preparing for close upon 3,000 years. So exalted and peculiar an initiation it is. It is this influence also which has enabled the Master R to assume the mantle of the Mahakoan and become the Lord of civilization. A civilization which will be conditioned by the rhythm of the seventh ray.
Thank you. This is an attempt to put into a symbolic representation these superimposed triangles that we have in many of our groups been working with. So you can imagine the yellow triangle as the triangle of the saving force. Shambhala, hierarchy, and humanity. And it is the embodiment of the will of God, the love of God, and the intelligence of God in those 3 points. DK gives us 3 triangles of the saving force, each associated with one of the points. The one that is most clearly articulated is that of the Manu, Master Moria, and the Christ, bringing the power to relinquish, and echoed in the second great invocation when we state the will to save is here through this triangle of the Manu, the Master Moria, and the Christ, with the Christic principle as a centralizing force within all the triangles. The second triangle is not as clearly articulated, but involves the Christ, Master Kuthumi, who is taking that office as the Christ ascends. And we know that Master Dwal Kul has been involved and is moving to assignment in another ashram. And there are other masters involved in this triangle, which represents the love of God pouring through as the love to carry forth the work being widely spread abroad. And then we have the triangle of the Christ, the Mahachoan, and the Masters of Attribute. The third ray, Masters, working with the Masters of Attribute. And in this first stage, we are seeing the beginning of what will be the first synthesis, which is the seventh ray, then the sixth ray, the fifth and the fourth, merging for the first synthesis that will occur into the third ray as the development of the ashram of synthesis continues to emerge for humanity. And in this, we confirm it when we say, the active aid of all who know the truth is also here, building to humanity's capability to express the intelligence of God, and the promise that we will be able to achieve this to some extent in this Aquarian age. It is a great channel that has sparked some wonderful work through all of our groups. So let's take a closer look at what we have been given in relation to this as these divine and increase the receptivity of humanity to the divine ideals and divine vision that manifests as a ashramic receptivity and is brought into the planes of intuition and Buddhic plane as healing on a divine level to the masters. And we develop our telepathic rapport through our connection to the initiates, senior disciples, to bring down the ideas into the minds of disciples and into pure thought forms that then we can telepathically convey to aspirants and intelligentsia, and hopefully to the ordinary minds. And this is a process, as we know, that's ongoing, but that we keep in mind that it is the Christ, aided by the Manu and the Mahachohan, in those triangles of the saving force, who coordinates this entire life of the great ashram. And there is this dual flow of energy and force into the great ashram as the ashram of synthesis, energizing life from Shambhala with what is called unfettered enlightenment down. And then this field of the energy of active intelligence from humanity as more and more of becoming enlightened, that is actually the enabling force for the masters to formulate the plan. This goal for us as we enter the Aquarian age, so that we are drawn into relation with the ashram through its radiation and enter finally into its magnetic field. So being aware of these triangles of the saving force being activated now, so that that second triangle, DK says, is to organize for the goodwill work. And the future of the world lies in the hands of those of goodwill, men and women of goodwill, and in those who have unselfish purpose everywhere. This release of energy through that second stanza, second iteration of the great invocation, will eventually make money as we know it of no moment whatsoever, because money has proved itself, owing to man's limitation, a producer of evil and the sower of dissension and discontent in the world. And this new released energy can prove itself a saving force for all of humanity, releasing them from poverty, ugliness, degradation, slavery, and despair. It will, released fully, destroy the great monopolies, take the curse out of labor, and open the door into the golden age for which all human beings wait, men and women of goodwill. It will level all the artificial layers of modern society and liberate us from the constant anxiety and grueling toil which have been responsible for so much disease and death. When these new, better conditions are established, then men will be free to live and move in beauty and to seek the lighted way. That is our efforts to organize for the good will work. There has been a power released through science, DK tells us, and I believe it's the esoteric sciences, for the intelligence of God. And it was originally stated to be lying in the hands of the United Nations, and we still hold this intention, to protect this released energy of goodwill through science, from misuse, and to see that its power is not prostituted to selfish ends and purely material purposes. This is the saving force, the triangle of the third ray of the saving force, and it has in its potency rebuilding, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. And many are activating the great devas, working, those great builders, working with this potency, so that through its right use, it can abolish destitution and bring civilized comfort to all upon our planet, and its expression in right forms of living, if motivated by right human relations. It will, in the new age, produce beauty, warmth, color, and the abolition of the present forms of disease. So we have the masters working with this aspect to bring about a synthesis through the Mahachohan of the seventh ray energies, the sixth ray energies, the fifth ray energies, and the incoming fourth ray energies, to eventually produce this synthesis of those ashrams, the first synthesis that we can achieve. And we do have the triangle of synthesis through the avatar of synthesis, with the Spirit of Peace and the Lord Buddha, the Lord of Light, infusing the Manu, the Christ, and the Master Moria with the power to relinquish. And many disciples and initiates turn to Agni Yoga and the Master Moria to vitalize and to bring the wills into prominence in all group work. So Shambhala, the hierarchy in humanity, will stand consciously related and dynamically in touch with each other. The will of God, the love of God, and the intelligence of God will then fuse and blend on earth and in relation to human problems. Conditions will consequently be brought about and energies will be set in motion, ending the rule of evil and bringing the war, all war, to an end through the victory of the forces of light, recognized and aided by humanity. This synthesis of the three energies evoked through invocation and the response of certain divine potencies is esoterically given the name of the saving force. There is additional writings of DK that this was, released in atomic energy and then was utilized by humanity in an improper way. And we are in the process of trying to redeem this, certainly, as a planetary goal. Because it was never before it appeared on the physical plane. And this particular triangle of the saving force, this power to relinquish the misuse, I think is being aided through those groups working with the teachings of Master Moria in Agni Yoga. Those groups are becoming more and more present. And let us be reminded again from our January meeting that this goal of ours to fully empower these three triangles of the saving force underlies all of our study, meditation, and service. It is our willingness to stand in group formation as we await, become aware, and recognize the incoming potencies of this avatar of synthesis. Later, the avatar will come who will achieve neither the full enlightenment of the Buddha nor the full expression of the divine love of the Christ, but who will have a large measure of wisdom and love, plus that materializing power, which will enable this avatar to found a divine powerhouse upon the physical plane. His task in many ways is far more difficult than that of the two preceding avatars, for he carries in himself not only the energies of the two divine principles already duly anchored upon the planet by his two great brothers, but he has also within himself much of the third divine principle, hitherto not used upon our planet. This avatar carries the will of God into manifestation. And of that will we as yet know really nothing. So difficult is his task that the new group of world servers is being trained to assist the avatar. Thus, an aspect of the first ray principle will be anchored by him upon earth. And it is beginning to form in our fields of service. And let us now read DK's teaching in relation to our fields of service. Martha, would you be able to continue reading for us?
Yes. Service. Quote, too much emphasis has been laid upon the process whereby the lower nature is to be subjugated to the higher law of service, and the idea of sacrifice in its worst implications has been developed. This idea emphasizes the necessary and inevitable clashing between the lower nature, working under its own laws, and the higher aspects as they work under spiritual laws. Then the sacrifice of the lower to the higher assumes great proportions, and the world becomes quite suitable. There is sacrifice, there is suffering, there is a painful process of detachment. There is a long effort to let the life flow through, whilst steadily the personality throws up one barrier and obstruction after another. This stage and attitude we can view with sympathy and understanding, for there are those who have so much theory about service and its expression that they fail to serve, and also fail to comprehend with understanding the period of pain which ever precedes enlarged surface. Their theories block the way to true expression and shut the door on real comprehension. The mind element, chitta, monkey mind, is too active, unquote. It is in this sign of Aquarius also that the moon, in its own right of antiquity and of ancient thought form control, and also as veiling both Vulcan and Neptune, connects the force of Virgo with the energies of Taurus, of Cancer, and of Aquarius. This is of peculiar importance, for it relates the form-building aspect with the consciousness aspect, which, at a high stage of development, produces the manifestation of the Christ principle, or Christ child.
I thought it would be important to include this particular excerpt from esoteric astrology at this time, because we know from DK's teachings that the moon relates to the first solar system, And so much of what we are encountering in humanity's actions at this time is related to the bringing forth of these unredeemed aspects into humanity's consciousness as the dweller at this time. And each of us can look individually at our own relationship to the signs of Virgo, Taurus, Cancer, and Aquarius, and Vulcan and Neptune, and find a path of redemption in our own charts if we look at the influence of the planetary rulers in a way that aligns with our soul purpose. And there are many teachers now who are coming forward. I have a great respect for what Antonella is bringing forward in the terms of the new astrology as we let go of all of those attachments to the astral plane and the astral body and life of humanity that has impure symbolism that we are now beginning to divest ourselves of. So if we can create new archetypes for ourselves in relation to the Aquarian age, it may be useful to look at your own astrology. And now we're entering this point of really attuning to the Saturn-Neptune alignment in Aries that is coming at 0 degrees soon. So that's just a comment. Martha, would you continue?
Yes. When the personal lower self is subordinated to the higher rhythms and obedient to the new law of service, then the life of the soul will begin to flow through the man to others. And the effect in a man's immediate family and group will be to demonstrate a real understanding and true helpfulness. As the flow of life becomes stronger through use, the effect will spread out from the small surrounding family group to the neighborhood. A wider range of contacts becomes possible until, eventually, if several lives have been thus spent under the influence of the law of service, the effect of the outpouring life may become nationwide and worldwide. But it will not be planned, nor will it be fought for as an end in itself. It will be a natural expression of the soul's life, taking form and direction according to a man's ray and past life expression. It will be colored and ordered by environing conditions, by time, by period, by race and age. It will be a living flow and a spontaneous giving forth, and the life, power, and love demonstrated, being sent forth from soul levels, will have a potent, attractive force upon the group units with which the disciple may come in contact in the three worlds of soul expression. There are no other worlds wherein the soul may at this time thus express itself. Nothing can stop or arrest the potency of this life of natural, loving service, except in those cases wherein the personality gets in the way. Then service, as the teachers on the inner side of life understand it, gets distorted and altered into busyness. It becomes changed into ambition, into an effort to make others serve as we think service should be rendered, and into a love of power which hinders true service instead of into love of our fellow men. There is a point of danger in every life when the theory of service is grasped and the higher law is recognized, then the imitative quality of the personality, its monkey nature, and the eagerness of a high-grade aspiration can easily mistake theory for reality. And the outer gestures of a life of service for the natural, spontaneous flow of soul life through its mechanism of expression.
I don't think we need to read each one of these, but I wanted to offer it to you as a way to maybe consider what you believe to be the technique of integration for your soul personality. And they're listed in relation to each one of these ray statements that DK gives. He says, on the path of return and in connection with the process of detachment, which we're focusing on in Aquarius, marks the progress of the soul towards release and the ending of the period of appropriation. He says that certain passages in a treatise on white magic can clearly indicate the intended technique. For Ray 1, it is the technique of integration that is called inclusion. For Ray 2, it is the technique of integration that is called centralization. For Ray 3, it is the technique of integration called stillness. In Ray 4, it is the technique of integration called steadfastness. In Ray 5, it is the technique of integration called detachment. And this technique does apply to us in Aquarius because the fifth ray is one of the dominant rays in Aquarius. Ray 6, the technique of detachment, restraint. And Ray 7, the technique of detachment, orientation, also prominent in Ray 7. And we will consider that in Aries. So one thing I've been encouraging people to do is to identify the rays of your three lower bodies, because those then integrate into the personality. And consider as you try to make the next point of full integration with your soul. Use the soul ray, which for those of us who are Ray 2 is centralization. And then look at the techniques for, let's say, for example, a seventh ray body, which is orientation. For a sixth ray astral body, restraint. And for a fifth ray mind, detachment. And consider how those come together in relation to your personality ray. And then allowing the gift rays of that Ray 2 soul to bring centralization into the manifestation of your soul personality integration. It's just an idea, something that if you find yourself, particularly in a group that may not manifest with your particular etheric physical ray, if you are a third ray, where your technique is stillness, and there is a lot of activity that goes on in that seventh ray orienting activity of a seventh ray physical etheric group. You can find some way to center yourself, centralization of your activities with that group. It's just a way to consider how to assist your soul in having a greater influence and dominance in your day-to-day activities. Many of us can use that technique possibly in relation to our own families and communities. And another technique is to use what DK says is something of interest to test our understanding of the esoteric relationships existing between the groups of teaching, in this case Patanjali and Master Dwell Kul, and see if we can find for ourselves, tracing the basic meanings. Many of us work daily or often with Light of the Soul, Patanjali's teachings. So let us, he says, by way of illustration, trace or indicate the relation between the 7 laws and the 8 means of yoga from Patanjali, because this will give us an illustration of the difference existing between the means of yoga as understood by the average yogi or esotericist who's following the Raja Yoga techniques, as they can be understood by the trained disciple or initiate. And again, we'll not walk through these together, but contemplate these, particularly as we move from, in this case, a first-rate technique, if you are part of that triangle of the saving force, working through the Manu and Agni Yoga and the Christ, it relates to the first 5 commandments, the universal duty. And note that, wonderfully, the way DK relates things also always has some numerological significance. So it is from first ray to second ray force, which is the law of magnetic impulse and attraction. So you can look at this in relation to your own rays, or the rays that you're using, or whatever law that you are focusing on in your own study. And we can use DK's reminding ourselves of what we read earlier. The extent of the discipline to be undergone by the disciple is settled and known by the soul before we even take a body. It is determined by law. So therefore, we have the law of economy, and the law of attraction, which governs us in this planet, on this planet. And what are the laws of group that we were brought in to actually manifest? It's a good question to ask yourself, and where you are in relation to these teachings. Just an option if you want to look more deeply into your own purpose. So we are told in Formula 1, this creation in the light, that a close study of these relationships will be found suggestive to us and illuminating to initiates. So let's not confuse illumination with a new or bright idea. It is something far different to that. He says the difference is that between the light of a star and the light of a steadily waxing sun. One reveals the fact of night, the other reveals the world of daylight and of conscious being. Another very deep teaching that takes much pondering. And we will ponder on this further in Pisces. He tells us in Agni Yoga, Master Morya's statement, unity is the first sign that the teaching is not simply empty sound. The teaching is a light on the dark path. Seekers should understand how often caution is needed, because the megaphone of space amplifies every sound. So we always move into the silence where the light can appear. Our bywords, as we have and we continue to use from our last year of work together on the 3 techniques, we embrace into conscious actuation the growth of the group idea, with a consequent general emphasis upon group good, group understanding. Group provides a field of effort and a center of energy towards which all of goodwill everywhere throughout the world can turn, thus pooling our resources, strengthening our hands, and sounding forth in unison the note of mutual cooperation for the good and well-being of all, irrespective of creed or race or any differentiation. This is not a vague and mystical generalization, carrying with it no practical purpose or plan. It is a statement of the ideals of this very large group of intelligent men and women found today throughout the world, as Master DK says, along all ray lines, and their name is Legion, and working in cooperation with those upon the inner side of life who know. These aims will be achieved, not by propaganda backed by force, but by example, backed by sacrifice and love. So let us hold that. And as a reminder, when we bring things down into the physical brain, we have these two rays that are dominant. The third ray brain brings it into a force that is adaptation, an energy that is development, and an action which is evolution, requiring the physical strength and stamina for that adaptability. And the seventh ray, the sensitive brain, the force is incantation, the energy is magic, white magic, and the action is ritual. And this seventh ray focuses and grounds the first ray, the will, and leads to the power direction which is given them. So the seventh ray brains the sensitivity to the environing conditions, which is then oriented and brought through in a kind of formality. So the two coming together, the third and the seventh, this etheric body is a body of vitality, whereby these personality expressions and the soul expressions on the higher level are being brought through our groups, all of our service groups, into manifestation on the physical plane when we meet together in these in-person study groups, meditation groups. And most of the vehicles have this dual capacity of invocation and evocation. And we always have this third function to ground or focus the energy so that we can produce a point of tension. For in the world we produce these points of crisis and interlude prior to the process of transmission. He says, ponder upon these words. So important for us as we work with our families, our communities. So Ben, would you please read one of these final statements before we close?
Remember, each life tends to greater stability, but seldom is the threefold personality yet to be found lined up, if so I may put it, with the causal consciousness. Temporary moments occur when this is the case, and when in moments of highest aspiration and for purposes of unselfish endeavor, the higher and the lower form align, direct. The first initiation. Usually the emotional body, through violent emotion and vibration or a fluctuating restlessness, is continuously out of alignment. Thus, the necessity of our service to dissipate clamor. Where the emotional body may be momentarily aligned, then the mental body acts as an obstruction through illusion, preventing the percolation down from the higher to the lower, and so to the physical brain. It takes many lives of strenuous endeavor before the emotional body can be stilled and a mental body built, which will act as a filter and not as an impediment. The second initiation. Even when this has been somewhat accomplished and the emotional body is stabilized and a pure reflector, and the mental body serves the purpose of a sensitive plate and discriminator, and the intelligent explainer of the higher imparted truth, even then I say it takes much discipline and many lives of effort to align the two at the same time. When that is done, the control of the physical brain and its final alignment remain to be effected so that it may act as a direct receiver and transmitter of the imparted teaching and may reflect with accuracy the higher consciousness. The third initiation.
I know many of us can identify with different stages, and we also have colleagues in our work together where we notice, their progress along the way when there's a transcendence of the emotional body reaction to a responsiveness of that higher soul-infused emotional inspiration that occurs. And it has such a wonderful effect on our groups when it is stabilized and becomes that pure reflector. And the mental body serves as a sensitive plate and discriminator, the intelligent explainer of the imparted truth. A long process, but one that we need to remember and not judge ourselves or others in relation to their progress on the path, I guess. So we focus as we endeavor to dispel our illusions. We keep in mind how wrong perception causes illusion, and we must invoke the brain and mind using discrimination and spiritual discernment to overcome illusions. And just keep in mind that we must distinguish between an idea, the manas, and the ideal, the buddhi. And that the cause of wrong perception is an untrained, unillumined mind, and the cure is training in the technique of Raja Yoga. And this results in the ability to hold the mind steady in the light, to perceive correctly, and to achieve a right outlook, and to attain a right mental attitude. So let us pause and in silence assimilate. Know what we need to return to as we prepare for the new moon in Aquarius. Silently connect to the great web of light, illuminating the jewel in the lotus, the central vessel, the spark of the presence in the crown of our group, and sound silently Om Mani Padme Hum. And allow the angel of the presence to direct your attention to that which you will ponder as an aspect of the will in the new moon of Aquarius. Holding the consciousness in the head and seeing our group together as one, visualize a sphere of deep electric blue, vivid and living, as we say the following words, endeavoring to realize their significance. In Aquarius, we stand in spiritual being and as the soul we serve. We stand within the light, and as the light shines throughout our form, we radiate that light. We stand within the love of God, and as that love streams through and from the heart, we magnetize the ones we seek to aid. We find pure intention and the daring to integrate at a new level of detachment. Creation in the light, orientation, and adaptability serving us in all our service projects with family, community, our esoteric service groups, all aligned with that subjective group that is reflected to us by the angel of the presence. We ponder together. In about 2 weeks' time, we will meet for our meditation on the 3 techniques and share in a few words what we have gathered during this time. We'll meet again in March. Time will be determined by the group. We'll meet on the 14th, and we'll continue with our consideration of Formula 1, Creating in the Light, and we'll begin to work with the idea of sacrifice and relation to Sanat Kumara in the Silent Watcher. And the Agni Yoga concept that we'll consider is gold, fitness, and discipline. With the soul quality of humility, we'll look further into the reasons that illusion is a challenge we must face. And we'll look at death as the power of repulsion, which is what we're told by Master DK. And we'll look at the will to good together in our reflection. Thank you all for your participation and your deep pondering and contributions. And if you have some ideas to share in relation to these particular themes for Pisces, please share those in an email or a text message, that we may incorporate them and create a more full group expression as we move forward together. Gratitude.